Hello and welcome to the FASA Leadership Lounge, where we dive into the policies shaping the work of Florida school leaders. I am Michelle White, Executive Director of the Florida Association of School Administrators.
I'm Jessica Janasiewicz, lobbyist for FASA and several school districts across the state of Florida.
Well, this last week, the State Board of Education met, and at the center of discussion was some controversy in Alachua County over free speech. That issue took up much of the spotlight, but the board also moved through a series of consent items approving amendments to several education rules. Here are a few of the most notable ones. First up is the rule on 6A 1.09663, which this rule really creates what's called the alternate academic achievement standards or access points. These access points give students with disabilities a clear path to earning a standard high school diploma. It's designed to make graduation more accessible while still holding students to rigorous expectations that fit their learning needs. The next rule was 6A 6.0331, and this rule affects how long districts have to complete evaluations for young students, specifically pre-K 3 through kindergarten, who are suspected of having a disability. Normally, districts have 60 days, but this change says that time when schools are closed, whether from a hurricane, severe weather, or even an emergency order from the governor, won't count against that timeline. The idea is to be fair and realistic when emergencies disrupt the school calendar. Next was Rule 6A 6.0531, and this one ties to the state's Reading Achievement Initiative for Scholastic Excellence, or the RAISE program. Under this rule, high school students who qualify will be prepared to tutor younger students in grades K through 3, focusing on literacy skills and the science of reading. It's a way to both strengthen early reading and build leadership opportunities for older students. So while the free speech debate may have dominated the headlines, the board also advanced some significant changes aimed at supporting students with disabilities, adapting to real-world emergencies, and improving literacy in the early grades.
And in addition to that, at the same meeting, there were two other education rules that came up for a vote, which were both approved. The first was Rule 6A 1.0018, or Safe Schools. This rule makes two important changes. First, it reduces the number of required emergency drills. Instead of holding one every 45 days, schools will now conduct them once every 9-week grading period. That's roughly once a quarter, which still keeps drills consistent, but gives schools a little more breathing room. Second, it makes sure that substitute teachers aren't left in the dark. Before they step into a classroom, subs must be given a copy of the school's safety policies. That's a simple change, but it could make a big difference in a crisis should one occur when you have a substitute in the classroom. The second was Rule 6A 4.02451, or English for Speakers of Other Languages, or ESOL teacher standards. This one updates the standards that colleges and universities use to prepare future ESOL teachers. The idea here is to make sure new teachers are equipped with the right training and tools to meet the needs of Florida's growing population of English language learners. So in short, one rule tightens up some safety and preparedness in schools, and the other strengthens a pipeline for teachers who serve multilingual students. Both rules passed, and both have a direct impact on students and the classrooms across the state.
Absolutely. And I feel like we talk about rulemaking a good bit on the Leadership Lounge, so we're going to talk even more about it. It usually doesn't make the headlines, but it really shapes how our schools and state government operate. This is the administrative rulemaking process in Florida. So a little bit about how it works. When the legislature passes a new law, sometimes that law doesn't spell out every detail. Instead, it tells a state agency, like the Florida Department of Education, to write rules that put the law into action. Think of it as filling in the gaps. The law is the framework, but the rules are the nuts and bolts of how it actually works in classrooms, schools, or state programs. The first step is the notice of rule development. This is the agency's way of saying, hey, we're thinking about writing a rule. It gets published in the Florida Administrative Register so that the public knows what's coming. And the public can actually sign up for emails that will notify you when this is happening. The next is the notice of the proposed rule. This is where the agency lays out the actual draft language. By law, there has to be a little space between the first notice and the proposal, at least a week, so that the public has a chance to react. Once a rule is proposed, stakeholders like parents, teachers, advocacy groups, or any citizen really can weigh in. They can request workshops, submit comments, or even suggest alternatives if they think there's a better, lower cost way to achieve the same goal. After that, the rule can move forward for adoption. But here's where it gets interesting. In Florida, if a rule has a significant economic impact, it may have to go to the legislature for ratification, which means that lawmakers get the final say before that rule takes effect. And if the legislature doesn't ratify it in the next session, that rule is then withdrawn and the agency has to start all over. Emergency rules are a little bit different. Agencies can adopt them more quickly if there's an immediate threat to health, safety, or welfare. And finally, even after rules are adopted, agencies have to go back and review them on a regular cycle, about every 5 years, to make sure that they still make sense and line up with current law. So pretty much Florida's rulemaking process is designed to balance that speed, accountability, and public input. The laws certainly set the vision, the rules build that roadmap, and the public has opportunities to get involved along the way.
Let's dive into a bill from just this past 2025 legislative session, which deals with rulemaking. Senate Bill 108, which is known as the Administrative Procedures Bill, was passed during this last session. Now, I know administrative procedures doesn't always sound quite thrilling, but this bill is actually a pretty big deal when it comes to how Florida agencies are going to write and enforce rules. It's about making government more transparent, more accountable, and easier for the public to follow. So here are some of the highlights. First, the timelines got stricter. Agencies now will have 30 days to put out a notice of rule development when a new law requires rulemaking, and 180 days after that to actually propose the rule. Plus, there has to be at least a week between those two notices so the public has time to see what's coming. Second, if an agency misses those deadlines or if the legislature doesn't ratify the rule during the next session, it gets pulled. Agencies just can't let things sit in limbo anymore. They have to restart the whole process. Third, emergency rules are now going to be on a tighter leash than they have been in the past. Agencies will have to publish the full text, not just a summary, and those emergency rules will expire if the related permanent rule doesn't get ratified in time. No more emergency rules living on in perpetuity. Fourth, the bill focuses on transparency for the public. Any documents or materials that are tied to rules must be published in a searchable electronic format with clear markups showing what's new or different. So when agencies estimate the cost of new regulations, they have to include concrete examples, things like the market impact or transactional costs for businesses. And finally, Senate Bill 108 requires regular rule reviews. Every agency has to look back at all of its rules over a 5-year cycle to make sure they're still relevant and legal. New rules adopted after July 1st of this year will automatically get reviewed in their 5th year. So what does that mean in short? That means more transparency, more accountability, and fewer outdated or unchecked rules just hanging around. It's a big shift in how we handle rulemaking, and it's aimed to make sure that agencies are both responsive to lawmakers and open to the public in a more clear and transparent way.
Absolutely. And we have certainly seen that starting to come into play as the Department of Education has released more notices of rulemaking based on laws that took effect after July 1. And we expect probably in October, we'll see another few of those as more laws come into place. So we talked about this before, but once again, FAFSA's Advocate 26 conference is coming soon, January 26th through the 28th, and we hope that you'll come.
Yes, this is your chance to connect directly with your legislative delegation, to sit in on some committee meetings. And because it's going to be session this year when we come in January, you can actually watch the House and Senate debate and vote on bills in real time as they have their floor sessions. It's a bit like having a front row seat to the legislative process. So it's a powerful opportunity to make your voice heard. And remember, our platform is only as strong as our members who shape it. This means we need you, your ideas, your feedback, your voice. The more input we have, the stronger and more representative our advocacy becomes. So please don't hold back, get involved and help us move education in the state of Florida forward.
Absolutely. Check your Friday facts from last week. There are links in there for both registration for Advocate and about giving your input into this year's platform and priorities. So that is our update for this week. We thank you so much for listening. We have heard wonderful feedback about season 2 already. If you have policy topics that you would love to hear us cover, kind of dig into a little bit, please make sure to send that our way. And of course, share the Leadership Lounge with your colleagues. Let them know where you're getting your updated information on all things policy in Florida education. You can, of course, also visit FASA.net. Make sure to go to those advocacy sections to see the resource links for checking on rules and bills that may be under development and their current status. So thank you so much and stay tuned for more updates.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. The podcast is produced by Jeff Willoughby. Special thanks to musical director David Higgins. Make sure to subscribe to the Leadership Lounge podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topic suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@fasa.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.